Yeah, the only thing I'm missing is the script.
You got the gavel though.
I do.
In that folder.
You think it is? Good.
That's my guy. With our cat. that likes the
How old
dog.
is the dog?
12.
Oh,
He's a
right.
rescue, yeah. Half Great Pyrenees, half golden, 75-pound sweetheart.
It's not in there.
Just call to order the April, whatever. And state the time for the record.
All right, being as it's 5:30, I call to order the April 18th Planning Commission meeting for Breckenridge, Colorado. Do I need to gavel them? Staff, can we get roll call?
We can. Mr. Gerard. Mr. Giller. Mr. Lees
Here.
is proper.
Here.
Okay. We have a quorum. Next would be review of the minutes, Mark.
Here we go. Are there any changes to the minutes? Okay, being as there are none, we'll go ahead and approve those those minutes. Staff, are there any changes to the agenda?
No changes to the agenda, Chair.
As part of the certified local government, we are asked to take public comment on historical preservation issues in the community. With that, I'll open the meeting to any public comment. If you're attending the meeting by phone, press *9 on your phone and then *6 to unmute yourself. Anybody out there? No. Okay. I don't think we have anything on the consent calendar.
Yeah.
We do? Yep. I got it. I just- So anybody want to call up that particular item?
It's a sign of summer.
He already did minutes.
We approved them. So being as nobody has got an issue with the consent calendar, we will move on.
It stands as approved.
So the consent calendar will stand approved as presented.
Thank you. Hi, Elaine.
Hi, sorry.
Oh. Do we have,
Yes. Should be a fairly quick work session here tonight. This came up a few meetings ago, and so we brought it back to you quickly. I have a work session on making some amendments to the off-street parking requirements code. In your packet, you had a memo that outlined two different sections of the parking code that we were going to discuss. But after some more internal discussion with staff, we feel we really need to take the second piece about the exemption for deed restricted housing back to town council before we discuss it with the planning commission. That was something that they added into the code previously. So we'll bring it to them before we talk about it here tonight. But we do have changes to 9-3-8 of the off-street parking requirements that we want to go through. if you recall, when we discussed the Stables Village Master Plan, duplex units, and then our code kind of jumps to multifamily units regarding parking. And duplex units do not have a parking maximum, but multifamily units do in the parking code. And so when you have something like a townhome that happens to be 3 attached units, you can run into trouble when you're calculating the parking because you either can't achieve the parking minimum or you can't achieve the maximum, because if each unit has at least 1 car garage and then in 1 exterior space, you would exceed the maximum, or otherwise you're not, there's not an equal provision of parking for each unit that's otherwise very identical. And we want to encourage garages to, screen parking from view. So we don't want to do anything that discourages garages. So I kind of laid out an example of why this doesn't work, the math. So we've suggested 2 changes in section A and section B tables to just change duplex to add townhomes to that section. And then for parking that's within the service area. So you could see the service area map that was also included in the memo. It's an overlay within the downtown area. Parking within the service district, duplex and townhomes would continue, it would be the same as the residential requirements for other types of units. So 1.1 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area. But we are suggesting for this particular unit category that you allow a parking maximum that could be rounded so that the units, if there's 3 or 4 or 5, would have an even distribution of parking. Whereas the current parking maximum within the district doesn't allow for rounding, and the minimum is the maximum with no additional allowed. And then under section B, so parking outside the service district, we're suggesting to change duplex to duplex and townhome. And then the minimum required number of spaces would be 2, and there would not be a maximum allowed, very similar to single family that's currently in the section B table.
So. Does anybody have any questions about that before I ask mine?
Question as to
Yeah.
why there was a maximum.
Parking maximums are something that we instituted in 2022. It's in order to reduce extra surface area and impermeable surfaces to cut down on overpaving. We really felt like in the service area for parking, we were encouraging open space and not having so much over paved area is important. So in only allowing the minimum to be the maximum in that area was what we passed in 2022.
The other thing I might add on that, Elaine, is that we also didn't want to just allow an infinite number of spaces for some development. We've had some previous developments where literally they proposed 200 extra spaces that weren't required. And it was just taking up a lot of programming, bulk and mass, that kind of thing. So we really wanted to, keep it within something that's reasonable. And it's something that you're seeing more of across the country. More communities are doing some type of maximum. The other part is just to limit the parking overall, because parking just takes, like Sarah just said, it takes up a lot of space, and you could use that space for housing, et cetera. So.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Sarah, the maximum would apply as well to underground parking or only on surface parking?
So for this distinction, I want to make clear that we're talking about when a duplex or townhome would have a deeded parking space that's basically attached to their unit or directly in front of their unit. If it's something where there's a shared parking pool and you have, I don't know why this mic keeps popping. If you have a shared parking pool, like an underground lot or surface parking lot, we want to continue to be able to enforce the maximum. So those types of developments would be considered under multi-unit residential continue.
Right, okay.
So I have a question about your chart here.
Mhm.
When you've got maximum allowed, you've got none, do you really mean zero? Because it's kind of,
No, we just mean we're not capping the number of spaces. And that's in the current code for single family and for accessory apartments, there's currently no maximum. So they could have as many parking spaces in a single family driveway as they wanted to.
because the none is a little bit unclear to me. And anybody else reading that might have the same confusions. That mean there are,
Would it be more clear if we said no maximum?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Limited.
We could update that with this change since it's in the same section. What other questions? Anything? You may have to turn it on underneath. I thought we got them all, but. There you go.
Do you foresee that there be any problem with, townhouses being developed where they have tons of parking and then rent out parking space? Or, parking is becoming really difficult in Breckenridge.
Over parking for the duplexes and townhomes, we haven't seen in current developments. In fact, they want to pave as little as a lot of times they want to pave a limited amount because it is expensive to add extra paving. It's not over parking for duplexes and townhomes is not something we've seen. It's more when you get to like the commercial, where like Mark gave the example of 100 extra spaces or something where it's more of a problem. Residential for those types of like the single family attached or multifamily attached hasn't been a problem that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Sarah, I was trying to remember this from the first time we confronted this. Is there a statutory definition of townhome? I thought I put that in my notes that there was or wasn't, but I couldn't find
We
it.
do have a code definition of townhome, and it basically implies that if your unit is attached to another unit and you own the ground beneath your unit, that's the standard definition of a townhome. So different from a condo where you own the airspace and you may own airspace over top of another unit or.
So essentially then a townhome is any attached unit except as a duplex, which is defined as two, but a duplex is actually a townhome as well.
Yes.
And if I may add, the planning and zoning definition, the development code definition is different than the building code definition. We're speaking of the former, not the latter. So you will see confusion in that.
Yeah.
That's a good clarification.
I think it needs to be clarified.
Yeah. Well, we just reference our development code and it should be good.
If we have an existing townhome definition. What we don't have a definition for is multifamily attached, so that's where we're using townhome as the category here.
Okay. And is there anything else?
I did just have the two questions at the end. The last one's not applicable anymore, but the first one is if you would support the recommended code changes for adding those categories to section A and section B. And then if yes, under number 2, if you agree with the maximum that would allow for rounding in the service area.
Okay. Do we need to take?
I've got one other question.
Oh, sure.
Going back in history, we approved a development up the street from the Carlin. In the name of which has escaped my mind, but Dave Caroli's.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And I remember we got kind of in the weeds on that, discussing townhomes.
Yeah,
And
those are
I-
condo-
And yes, they're actually condos.
two-unit condos.
Yeah.
And the term duplex doesn't have a place in the code, the building code or the development code. That's more of a.
We do have a definition for duplex in the development
Yeah.
code.
I believe that's how Chris categorized them, was duplexes. Yeah.
Part of the reason we had that question on my house, my two houses,
Mhm.
exactly how they were defined. And we didn't realize it till into construction. Didn't really matter ultimately, but it did cause confusion.
And even though they wanted to call those townhomes.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. We concluded that they're not, that they're condominiums.
Yep.
We're not running afoul of anything with this change that plays into that, I don't think, but I just remembered that argument.
I know where you're talking about, but I'm not familiar with the exact plans that were approved, so if maybe that's something we need to take a look at and make sure that it matches what we're suggesting here, or if there would be any issues.
Yeah, we could take a look at that before it goes to council. I think there was like 2 spaces for each duplex unit, or if
I mean, there was a
I'm
big fight
mistaken.
over the spaces and we got them to eliminate some spaces
Yeah.
to use it more efficiently, but I just remember that was
Mhm.
part of our
Yep, you're right.
discussion.
Any other comments? Okay, should we address Sarah's questions, number 1 and 2, and we'll ignore 3?
Yes, please. Thank you.
We'll start with Elena.
Elaine,
Elaine.
Elaine, that's all right. I'm new. You're learning my name. I'd say yes, and I'm fine with the rounding also. Makes logical sense to me.
Steve.
This solves a problem that we encountered, and I think at that point in time, I certainly argued for a change to the code to address that issue. So yes, and yes to 1 and 2.
Mike.
Yes, and nice work, Sarah.
Thanks.
Susan.
Yes, and yes, and I agree, this is a good change.
And I concur with yes to number 1 and yes to number 2. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really painless and quick, right?
Yeah, maybe just a little, we want to hold off on that second part, and you guys got to read that, but the council did this about 5 years ago, I'm going to say. They put that incentive in to basically in the downtown overlay district, I believe is the boundaries of that. If you have a deed restricted unit, like on the 2nd floor, like downtown here, Main Street, you can get your parking waived. Well, if you put a deed restriction on a unit, and you can get your parking requirement waived. And the whole thought process behind that was, well, we're right downtown. People don't have to have a car. Be great if we could, use that as rationale for doing that. And certainly it's done in other cities and places like that. In reality, in the one instance that we did do it, they came in asking for residential permits. And the tenant, the landlord is like, all my tenants, my prospective tenants all have cars. So we need to have that conversation again with the council to see how they feel about that. More recently, we've used that a couple other times, and we were able to put in actually a no residential permit will be provided as a condition of the approval. So that may address it to the council's liking. But the other issue that's come up with the most recent ones, and they came through you guys too, is that essentially that was used as a way to free up parking area space behind a restaurant so they can convert it over to outdoor dining. And so we're gonna have a conversation with the council about whether they continue to support that or not in that type of situation. So, I mean, there's obviously there's vibrancy with outdoor dining and all that, but there's also been a push lately. We started to require employee mitigation for outdoor dining and some other things. So maybe not quite as simple as just, yeah, let's just get rid of our parking everywhere for dining.
So Mark, what does a downtown parking permit get that person?
Permit, it gets them ability to park somewhere within the downtown area, and there's certain parking lots like East Sawmill, I believe, and a few other lots that are available, as well as some on-street parking up on like French and places like that where you can park. And it's when you don't have, and we have that situation where people have existing homes, like on French Street, they don't have enough parking. They're given permits for the parking that they can't accommodate on site. And so, and that's all managed kind of through, Jesse and our staff.
You only qualify for a residential permit if your property is deficient per the code for the number of bedrooms and then the required parking. So you can't just say, we need a pass.
But if you have a pass, does that mean that you could just go and park in any of the zones? For
Yes.
example, you could park in front of Fatty's and you don't need to put the,
I don't.
I don't think you can park in front of Fatty's or on Main Street. I don't think you can park on Ridge or Main, but I think you can on French. And then there's outline parking areas. I think East Sawmill, I believe Tiger Dredge.
The French
are-
Street lot.
Yeah, a few of those have been designated for residential permits.
and is there a sticker that designates so that the person doesn't get a ticket, or how does
Yeah.
that work?
Yeah,
So as long as the parking people see the sticker, they won't ticket the car.
yeah. And nowadays that stuff is all kind of computerized too. I mean, they just have the license plate number in their
I see,
database.
I see. Okay.
So there'll probably be more to come on that down the road.
All right, we'll close the work session.
Yes.
So is it time for town council update, Mark?
Yes, Mark. Thanks. Okay, so council meeting last week, April 11th. They got a presentation on e-bike share program that's being implemented here in the next, I think it'll be ready to roll by June. It's all docked, we've seen these systems all over in other communities, Aspen, number of places that we've gone to in previous field trips, and obviously down in Denver and that. This is going to be an all docked system. So you can't just leave your bike anywhere like some of the systems allow you to do. It's very much controlled. Council wanted to make sure that that happens. So to the extent possible, we're limiting bikes ending up everywhere, like in the river. And so the real goal of these is there's going to be bike racks with some of these e-bikes set up at a lot of our housing projects. Alta Verde, near Blue 52, out near Wellington. They're going to have some bike racks with some of these bikes there. And then there'll be a bunch of docked areas downtown so it's to facilitate those quick trips into town and back out again. And it's been carefully thought through to avoid competition with the local bike shops. If someone rents one of these, it's pretty cheap for the first 30 minutes, and then it gets real expensive in a hurry. And so it's not, they had some stakeholder meetings just last couple of weeks ago with the bike shops, and they're all pretty comfortable with it, that the way they set the price structure and everything, that it's not going to compete with them. So, anyway, so that's going to get implemented this year. It's kind of a pilot program. We're hoping it'll get a lot of ridership. I think maybe it was, I'm trying to remember, another mountain community. I don't know if you remember the name, Sarah or Michelle, that implemented it last year, and they got a lot of trips. No, it was
Vail.
just, it was brand new. Was it Vail?
It was Vail.
Yeah. So, and I think they got 7,900 trips or in their inaugural year. So that sounds pretty strong. So we're hoping we can do something similar. So anyway,
Does the contract provide for some feedback so we know which bikes are used from which area and where they go?
yeah, well, they do all that. They will be absolutely providing reports on that. And what they do is they reallocate bikes based on where they're more popular. As soon as things happens within several weeks, they'll be starting to see trends like, oh, we need more bikes over here. No one's using this area, and they'll, and then they know the areas where they got to go. And like, there's too many bikes here. We got to move some somewhere else. And so anyway, they'll be doing all that. And there's bringing on the company that's doing the work. I don't remember their name, but they're they do this all over the country, and they're hiring local people to assist them with this, to do the maintenance and all that. So when there's issues, they come, they pick up the bikes and take care of them.
So those people will be responsible for the bikes that people do throw in the river and do leave laying around.
Yeah.
they'll
It's
be
gonna happen
responsible
to
go
some
get 'em
extent,
and
yeah.
take care of them.
Yeah.
Discussion about helmets.
Yeah. And I think the end of the day, it was, they weren't going to do helmets. They
When-
may, I'm not sure if they're going to provide them. Do you remember, Sarah?
When you log on to the app, it's like goes through like a safety checklist, and a helmet is like recommended, but it's not something that they're gonna provide at the station with the bikes.
Okay, thanks.
They probably got a good lawyer who has a release of liability in that login.
Yeah. It's kind of one more hassle of running one of those things. I've used them before where there's helmets, and they have to constantly be recycling those helmets and cleaning them and everything. So
And did you say that some of them are e-bikes or?
they're all e-bikes. Yeah. So it's really, and they've got spare batteries. They'll just pop on when they need to. And that way they're charging, and they've got, they can always keep the fleet fully charged in a quick period of time, to change those out. And, they'll be monitoring. They can see what the level on the bikes are and everything in terms of charge. So, it's gonna be exciting to see how that works.
I think it'll be valuable to see where the bikes come from too, who uses them.
Right. Yeah. Well, it'll be, this is, like say pilot program this year. They'll probably reallocate, hopefully it's successful enough where we bring it back for subsequent years, and then we'll make some changes, I'm sure, where they go. So, but anyway, yeah, so that's exciting. And we got a grant that I believe, and I forget, I don't know where the grant came from, but anyway, I think it's paying for half of this first year, and the council's putting in the rest of the money towards it. So it's obviously right in line with all our sustainability initiatives. The
Well,
state,
Speaking of that, Mark,
Yeah.
what is the financial relationship here? I would have assumed that the vendor was giving the privilege of putting the bikes in, and the costs would be borne completely by the vendor and the revenues that they make. From what you just said, it sounds like the city has an expense here too. Is that the
I
case?
believe that's the case, just the startup cost of this.
Uh-huh.
The vendor will, you're right, make something end of the day. But I don't think it's enough to make them whole, at least, in this initial startup.
Really?
So, but I could get more information from Teddy Wilkinson. He's been heading up this whole effort. on that, but that's my understanding, kind of from what I heard. Is that what you heard, Sarah?
I actually missed the financial part of the
Okay, yeah,
demonstration.
yeah. So anyway,
That's surprising to me.
yeah, I know a lot of these places do come in and make it all pencil out. I'm not sure if that works in a smaller community like ours, where we're talking about a smaller amount of bikes in that to start with, but I may be wrong.
I don't think it works where we have winter. Because they're bringing all this stuff in
Yeah.
for a
right.
relatively short season as opposed to putting them out there and having 12 months of use to recoup their costs.
That's true. Yeah.
Unless they change them all to fat tire winter bikes.
Yeah.
It's not gonna work.
Not like Seattle where they can have them out all year.
Right.
Yeah.
And just so we understand, the advantage from the town's point of view is that we will get more cars off the street. Is that the idea?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the idea is.
And for that, the town's willing to shell out money to make that happen.
Exactly.
Are they looking at making it so these e-bikes can ride on the road as opposed to the bike trails where little kids and their families are? And they get plowed over by these bikes?
Yeah, no, they,
Especially under these underpasses that are really steep. these
so,
e-bike-
no, the e-bikes are already allowed on the rec path. And so it's no, there are already some out there. And it's just people that own them or rent them from all the bike companies here in town rent e-bikes. So there are already a bunch of them around.
It's crazy.
And,
Not if you guys bike, but
There was a lot of debate about that several years ago, and we finally allowed the lower class e-bikes on the rec path. But you could see it's a tidal wave coming in of e-bikes where it's taken over the whole market of bikes that are sold now. And that was one of the issues. Like, you got a big heavy bike coming at a relatively high speed and is it going to be dangerous? And I don't know if there's much actual empirical evidence out there to demonstrate that. There's probably a lot of anecdotal situations that people can come up with, but anyway, they feel that the council made a call a couple of years ago. So yeah, they can be on the road or they can be on the rec path. They are not allowed on our trail system.
What about sidewalks?
I don't.
You're technically not supposed to ride a bike on the sidewalk. But
There's signs in the downtown area about that.
you should
walk
ride
your
it on the
bike
road
or-
or walk it.
No bikes allowed.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Awful lot of people don't.
Read the signs.
All right, other things, the council approved, the Stables Development Contract with Suzanne Alangara. So that, was a critical step in kind of moving forward on all this. I think next month you'll probably see the first subdivision out there. So, coming in here. And the Open Space Master Plan was adopted, so that's good news. Sarah brought the Stilson Stables Village Master Plan to them for the town project hearing week after you guys approved it and the council approved it. Very pleased at direction it's going, and so that's off to the races. We had a work session for Father Dyer. A couple things. One is, I'm not sure you're aware of this, but you remember we've gone through 2 different development permits with them. They have raised enough money to go with the big full addition,
Oh, good.
the 2,500 square foot addition, whatever that was, which I think was preferable to everyone.
Yeah.
So they're moving forward with that. The one issue they have is that they provide a food pantry service. And I guess it's a couple of mornings a week they do that. And they did not want to have to totally discontinue that for the whole year plus of construction. And so they came in and talked to us about putting a trailer, like a cargo container, that would have some refrigerated and freezer units in it to keep food in so that they could operate that pantry. And our code doesn't allow temporary structures, and that's how it would be classified in the conservation district. So we're actually taking them through a development agreement to prove it. Kind of seems like a, kind of a tough step to have to just go through that to allow something like that, but it's not something we would want to allow anywhere in the conservation district to just pop up. So I really, Peter's been represented them, and I gently nudged Peter, like, we need to go in this direction. And, the council's very supportive of it. The only thing they're a little concerned about is there's probably going to have to be some type of cooling unit attached to keep that thing cool in the summertime, and so that those refrigeration units don't, just crap out on them. So anyway, that's, council just wants to make sure that that's addressed and that it doesn't create a bunch of noise for adjacent neighbors. And so that's one thing that we'll look at as a condition. So we're going to move forward with this development agreement and hopefully get it adopted here soon. So anyway, so if you see some things popping up out there, the nice thing about it, the location is right behind this huge spruce, and on the street, you won't be able to see it very well at all. So it's screened pretty well from the street. Let's see what else. The council is going to take action, I believe, to do a concealed weapon carry prohibition in town buildings. So had a few issues recently at the ice arena at hockey games. Anyway, so yeah. So anyway, now they're, saying we can do this in our town facilities. So they're gonna prohibit that in those facilities. And then BOSAC interviews happened, and 3 existing BOSAC commissioners were all reappointed for another 4-year term. So anyway, that's the update on the Fort Town Council.
Okay. Are there any other issues or questions from anybody? Okay, it is 6:07 and we are adjourned.
Tell Alan how efficient you were.
Stumble through. Should I sign those? What? Okay.